Brent, Jen, we're live here outside the state capitol, finishing up the last hour or so with the governor, whose special guest today was Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, the Yale internal medicine specialist, who was not only a part of the Reopen Connecticut task force here for COVID-19, but she's now been named the co-chair within the last week or so of Joe Biden's COVID task force. And she was asked today, one of the many questions she was asked was about what was absolutely necessary information that the Biden task force needs, like yesterday, from the Trump COVID task force.
I have a long wish list. I mean, it certainly does include the issues you raise around the vaccine and the distribution. As the governor outlined, this is just taking the vaccine question alone. It raises a lot of operational, logistical questions regarding supply chain and cold storage and many other things. We know that there are people who are very thoughtful and smart and creative who are in the current administration who are working on this now and finding solutions. So that is, one of many things that it would just be in everybody's best interest if we were to sync as teams in this process.
Of course, President Donald Trump has not yet conceded the election, and states will begin later this week certifying the election. As for Governor Lamont today, he, for the last several weeks, maybe 6 weeks, since October 1st, has talking about the eye-popping rise in hospitalizations. You heard Brent talk about 757 hospitalizations related to COVID statewide now, and Josh Jabal from the governor's administration said that that's the highest level since late May. The governor today adding more about hospitalizations and talked a little bit of a different angle.
So I think it's going to be less about beds, less about PPE, less about vents for sure, and more about making sure we can keep our doctors and nurses energized with enough backup, enough support that we can manage what could be the surge going forward. And we're working on that right now.
Governor Lamont also reiterated with a couple of other members of his team following a question from Paul Hughes from the Waterbury Republican American about violations in Connecticut communities and what people should do about that. And they said, keep calling your health department, keep calling your police department. And the governor said, we need more cooperation from our local partners. For now, we're going to go live from the Capitol to my colleague Matt Caron, who's got more on excellent news about another vaccine that is on the horizon. Matt, good evening.